Welcome into the Southeastern 14 podcast. This is the Friday edition. We've got a full slate of SEC baseball behind us, a night ahead of us. And Barry Allen, it was interesting on Thursday, as it always is on SEC opening nights of weekends. And let's start here. Arkansas has taken one big step closer to clinching the overall SEC title. Arkansas downs Florida last night in Fayetteville and now just needs one more win for the Razorbacks to clinch the overall title.
Well, they clinched the share for the West last night with a big win over Florida and a comeback win, which seems to be Arkansas's MO this year. They had a packed house at Baum last night, over 11,000, and you kind of got the feeling that when the gates were open fully and there was no restrictions, 11,084 to be exact. You kind of got the feeling that was going to go Arkansas's way no matter what, and kind of felt like it was going to go that way anyway because they're just the best team. But really good game for them last night, great atmosphere. Casey Opitz and Caden Wallace were the stars on offense. Wallace hit 2 home runs, go-ahead homer in the 5th, and a 3-run homer to put the lights out in the 8th. And Casey Opitz had a game-tying single in the 4th and a game RBI single in the 5th. So those two guys last night for Arkansas went 6 for 8, double 2 homers and 6 runs batted in the game. And then they plenty of run support for Patrick Wicklander, who struck out 11 in 6 innings, and then they turned the game over to Kevin Kopps for his 8th save. He retired 9 of the 10 he faced, 5 strikeouts, 1 walk, no hits, and the only run of the game for Florida came on Kendrick Callilau's solo homer in the 2nd inning. But big step for Arkansas last night. They win tonight. They clinched the West outright. They can still. They win tonight. They're 21-8. They need a win and a Tennessee loss, I think, to actually sew up the overall title, or they need 2 wins to sew it all up. The Vols had a very impressive win at South Carolina last night, but Arkansas in really good shape to be the SEC Western Division champion and really good shape to be the overall SEC champion unless something crazy happens in Fayetteville. It'd be their first outright SEC title since '99, and if they last won the SEC in 2004 when they shared with Georgia, and this would be their 6th Western Division championship and their 3rd straight, 18, 19, and 21. COVID won the West last year along with the East, but pretty remarkable run for Arkansas and a pretty good finish to what's been an amazing season for a really, really good baseball team.
Well, a couple of pitching items I want to touch on from last night. Kevin Kopps throwing 3 scoreless innings is almost a non-news item anymore. It seems like he does that every Friday night. But the Wicklander performance, sometimes a guy can give up 1 run in 6 innings, and it can be kind of a balancing act, right? Lots of guys left on base, maybe not a lot of strikeouts. That was not the case for him last night. He strikes out 11, only gives up, I think, 3 or 4 base runners to a pretty good hitting team. So that's one thing that stood out, was that he was very efficient through 96 pitches. Again, strikes out 11. On the other side, Florida's starting pitching. I mean, my goodness, it just is amazing to me that the Gators don't really have like even one guy that you just look at and say, that's a shut you down on Friday night guy. Their rotation all year has just not been what we had expected it would be.
No, it hasn't. Mace last night couldn't get out of the 5th inning, suffered his first loss, 4 walks, 2 wild pitches, a hit batter to go along with 5 hits and 3 runs. And, basically 104 pitches in almost 5 innings. You're talking about 20 pitches an inning, which is a little high as well. But they haven't. And, they've moved Leftwich to the bullpen. That seems to fit his role better. Barco and Aleman have kind of taken over the starting spots in 2 and 3, and Barco has pitched really well for them. But they have not pitched like everybody thought they would, and they probably have obviously like they thought they would. And we've kind of looked at Florida coming in the last couple of weeks, and you say, well, they're really playing well, but then you hit on it the other day. Well, they've beaten Missouri, Kentucky, Auburn, and so they got excited about who they were playing, but who were they playing in Georgia? That's their last 4 series wins, not Murderers Row, and some of the bottom teams in the league, and they kind of got fat on those teams. They went 9-3 in those games, but did win 2 out of 3 from Vanderbilt, but lost 2 out of 3 to Tennessee, and looks like they're on their way to losing at least 2 and Arkansas this weekend. Just by the way it was last night, but yeah, Wicklander dominated that lineup. Only 3 hits. They had 1 home run and 2 singles. They walked twice, and in 32 plate appearances, they struck out 16 times. That's one every other plate appearance. And Judd Fabian, big hole last night in the lineup, 0 for 4 strikeouts. They only had just a handful of at bats. Florida did with runners in scoring position. They only had 3 at bats with runners in scoring position all night long, and they only had 9 at bats in the entire game with a man on base. So, very little opportunity for the Gators to scratch a run across last night against Patrick Wicklander, and then obviously at the end of the game with Kevin Kopps, who came in and threw 3 scoreless innings and struck out 5.
Yeah, Hunter Barco has been the only really, or the closest thing to Florida's had to a dependable starter. He's a freshman. You just thought with all the upperclassmen that they would come up with more, but here we are heading into Hoover in a couple of days, and it's not there, and you just have to wonder at this point. And I want to flip to a different pitching discussion. Man, I want to buy into South Carolina. I would say that I have. I think that pitching staff is really underrated and it's really good. I thought that Carolina would take the series with the Vols this weekend, but now the Gamecocks behind the 8 ball. Tennessee wins that one 10-4 last night. Brandon Jordan, who's been good, he gives up a lot of base runners, but he's also pretty dominating with the high spin fastball that is really, really good at times. Tennessee got the best of him last night, and so for the Vols, again, if Tennessee wins out, the Vols are the Eastern Division champions no matter what happens with Vanderbilt because of that rainout with Alabama 2 weeks ago. But I think if you're South Carolina, you really hope to get off to a better start, and Tennessee putting up 10 at Founders Park was not what I really expected to see last night.
No, but when you look at it, it's South Carolina doing South Carolina things. I mean, they're now 2-8 in SEC openers this year. They have Auburn winning last night 3-7. Now they're the worst. They have the worst record in the SEC in opening games of a series. And if South Carolina was an emotion for life, I mean. You'd be on such a high and such a low with this team all year long if you just didn't just take it one day at a time. If you lived your life like South Carolina played baseball on the field, you'd be a wreck. I mean, they're really, really good. You think, wow, this is a really good team. They win 11 in a row, then they lose 7 in a row, and then and they get no hits at Vanderbilt, and they have no base runners in 3 innings. You think, wow, this team may not even make Hoover, and then. They hit 2 straight home runs against Vandy on Sunday and end up winning that game, get hot, sweep Florida. Now they're playing well, and then back down again, and then up again, and back down again. I mean, I think they go up and down more than the stock market does. I mean, this is a hard team to figure out. I mean, they are so hard to figure out. Just not consistent at all on offense or pitching. I mean, we thought pitching, we'll see tonight with Brett Carey, but, they punch out 9 times last night. They hit 2 home runs. Eister and Clark hit a 2-run homer each in the game, but that 6-run 4th inning that Tennessee got just really stands out against, Jordan. He gave up 7 runs in 3 2/3 innings. Not the outing that he's been getting, but give Gilreath a little credit, held him to 2 runs in 5 innings and saved the bullpen for the next 2 days. But I think a couple of must wins for South Carolina the next couple of days. I'm not sure they can get to the rest of this series, the way Tennessee plays. But, South Carolina, you know, they're just hard to figure out. They're 15-13. Now, I still think they'll make a regional, but I don't know that 15-15 is a regional host. And they got to at least get one and may have to win the next two to solidify that spot in the coming weeks.
Speaking of hard to figure out, we've talked about how Landon Marceau, in terms of week in and week out, is maybe as predictable as it gets in the league. I mean, Marceau had gone at least 6 innings in all of his starts, but neither of us really know why last night he goes 4, he throws 60 pitches. I haven't heard anything about an injury, but I think both of us, without any more information, just kind of left scratching our heads after the Tigers and when they pulled him last night. By the way, LSU loses that 2-1 in what is a pretty significant loss for LSU. I think now the Tigers really with their backs against the wall, needing to win the last 2 and having burned, I would presume, their best starting pitcher. But that was one that we're just both sitting here wondering on Friday morning what was up with Marceau getting pulled after 60.
Yeah, he only went 4, pitched. He only pitched 4 innings. They don't really.
I didn't see any news items. I looked. I'm looking for something that somebody's written about why he got pulled, and I can't find it.
Well, I'm on the LSU site, and that's what I'm trying to find. It said that they pulled him after 4 innings, and Maneri said Landon told me that his arm felt fine, but his body was fatigued, and he just didn't have any energy. And he said I was very concerned about him injuring his arm because he was laboring, so I felt the best thing to do was take him out of the game. His arm was fine. He just didn't feel like himself tonight. So, straight from the horse's mouth, Paul Maneri, that's how come he came out of the game after 4 innings. So, thanks to LSU for hooking us up and helping us out with that. Trying to get, why he went only 4 innings, because he's been really good. And, last week against Alabama now, and I read that, he gave up a ton of hits, 11 hits against Alabama. And it was, every pitch was high leverage. And when he gave up a hit, like in the 7th inning, Maneri goes out to talk to him and he goes, "How do you feel?" And he goes, "I think I'm done." You can see him talking. "I think I'm done." And Maneri replies back, "Yeah, I think you're right." He turns around and he points to Fontenot in the bullpen. The kid knew himself. Kudos to Marceau for going, "Oh, I got this. And, he goes, "Coach, I think I'm done. I think that's enough." And I agree. And they took him out, and the announcers talked about that. Lynn Rollins and Ronnie Rance talked about that. They go, he was honest. He told Coach Maneri, he said, "Coach, I'm tired." And he goes, "Yeah, I think so." So maybe that's carried over a little bit, but that's tough. And another thing that was interesting, and I don't think there's anything with it because we've not found anything, because I've talked to several people and we've not found anything, but they did not have AJ Labus listed as the starter for tonight. Now, our inclinations were that if they got into a situation last night where they needed to win, that AJ Labus might come in and close, because LSU's got to win. If they get swept, they're not going to Hoover and they're not going to a regional. So they've got to win a game. And so maybe, now they've maybe try to put all their eggs in a basket tonight and just go for it and win and get in the tournament with a win tonight. Because if they lose tonight and they lose tomorrow, A&M sweeps them, duh. And if Auburn sweeps Missouri, then we got a 3-way tie for 11th, and it's LSU, A&M, and Auburn, and the tiebreaker shakes out where it would be be A&M, Auburn, and LSU, and LSU and Missouri would stay home. So LSU's got to win. It's a must-win tonight. Absolutely got to win the game. Throw everything you got at them, and I'm guessing by saying that, since he said he was tired, that eliminates the fact that they might try to bring him back to close Saturday if they needed him. I doubt very seriously they would do that.
Well, you look at his pitching line, right? And he walks 3 and he only strikes out 1. That is very un-Landon Marceau-like. But, it's no wonder. It's hard to find guys who are that durable at any level of baseball anymore. And really, the 2 guys in this league that have been Kumar Rocker at Vanderbilt and him. I'm trying to look at Okay. I think those are the two leaders in innings pitched off the top of my head in terms of SEC games. I'm looking that up as we speak. I will be surprised if I'm wrong. No, okay. It's Rocker, Chad Dallas, and Landon Marceau after last night. So Marceau was second in the league in league innings until last night, and getting pulled from that start knocks him down a spot behind Chad Dallas. So, yes, I just think that I would say just by reading the box score, you look at that and going, something's wrong, and good for LSU for picking up on that. I mean, LSU really had to have that game, or I guess a better way to put it, has to have the next two now, or else I really think the Tigers, barring maybe a run to Saturday or something like that, are probably going to have a hard time getting in the tournament. That RPI has slid from 18 to 25 in a couple of days. Losing another one or two to Texas A&M is not going to help. I mean, that's LSU's thing, right? It's the RPI has put the Tigers in a position, and if it can't win the last two games in College Station, I think it's going to lose that too.
I agree. And if they don't win the last two games in College Station, they're not going to. Well, they win one, they'll make Hoover. But if they lose both games left on the schedule, I don't think if they can't make Hoover, they're not going to make the NCAA tournament. And down the stretch, just this would be a bad series loss, and just year where they just kind of struggled. I mean, not the LSU team we're used to seeing, but they've had some good moments, and they've had some bad as well, but just not the LSU team that we're used to seeing. And I do not think I'm not even sure a 12-18 LSU team can get in. I don't know that. I definitely know an 11-19 team's not getting in, but 12-18, barring a Saturday run to Hoover, and I don't know that they can do that. I don't know that they can get in, and I'm worried about Alabama, and I'm worried about Georgia as well. I'm worried about that we're only going to get 7 teams in right now.
Yeah, well, they put up those things about these are the times where if you win 12 in the league, then you get in 16% of the time or whatever that number is. But the big thing left out is you get further down the list is I would think that there's usually an and component to that, because if the and component is, you lose out in Hoover, I would think that's probably close to 0% of the time that you get in. If the and component is you go down and win 2 or 3 in Hoover, that's probably where those teams start getting in.
Yeah, I would think 12-18 and then one and done in Hoover is probably not that is probably not that metric to get you in the NCAA tournament. So I think if they get swept by A&M, they'll have to do some serious damage in Hoover, and if they just win the one game at A&M, I still think they'll have to win a couple of games in Hoover to give them a chance, or at least make them feel somewhat comfortable that they got a shot.
Well, speaking of durable guys, Doug Nikhazy's been really durable since he came back. I think he missed maybe the first couple of weekends. He was amazing again last night. I would say inning per inning, he's been the best starting pitcher in league play so far. He had a 1.89 ERA in league play going into last night, and I think they've updated that. Yeah, he's at 167 now. He throws 115 pitches, strikes out 13. That kid is just so tough to hit, I think. And I don't know the splits on lefties, but I bet you it's pretty ugly for the hitters, because that ball, it just seems like he hides it. I'm not going to say it's a slingshot delivery, but he's got a little Hideo Nomo light in terms of, you're not seeing the ball till it's kind of late. And the fastball usually plays maybe 89 or 90, but between the hiding it and probably a high spin rate thing too, he just has been impossible to hit. He was again last night. I think my concern, if you're Ole Miss, is I'm not going to say you burn Taylor Broadway, because I think he threw, 33 pitches. They can bring him back again. But that's one of those things I think that both Georgia and Ole Miss are looking down at those bullpens and those rotations and going between all those injuries. Okay, I think both of those coaches are going to be white-knuckling this to finish out the series. And, of course, Ole Miss gets the Game 1 win, which for the Rebels was a nice step if they are going to end up hosting.
I'll start with Nikhazy. it's a shame that the league doesn't have a starting pitcher of the year and a relief pitcher of the year. In my opinion, if there was a starting pitcher of the year, this guy would be it. No offense to Kumar Rocker. No offense to Jack Leiter. I think they're wonderful, brilliant, excellent, outstanding, any adjective you can think of that would describe them. But this guy gets it done every stinking week. And he's either shutting people out, and he shut out Georgia, he shut out Mississippi State. He didn't pitch against Auburn, the worst team in the league, or his numbers would be even better. He's made he's made 9 SEC starts, and the Rebels are 8-1 in his 9 SEC starts. And I think he's 8-1 in all those starts as well. He did pitch against LSU, and he lost to LSU in a tight game. But last night, 7 innings, 4 hits, all singles, no runs, 2 walks, 13 strikeouts, a career high, 27 batters faced, struck out 13 of the 27 guys that he actually faced in the game, and the guy just comes up money every week for them. And he is really good. And he's been their savior on the mound this year. They turned the game over to Broadway. They've got a Cops-like, not in his league, but they got a Cops-like guy that's had a few hiccups, but for the most part gets it done every night. He got his 11th save of the season last night, and that's a pretty lethal combination. Nikhazy and Broadway coming in gave Georgia no chance to win last night. I think their offense was even less anemic than Florida's. Obviously it was, because they only had they had score. They had 5 hits, and they did have a double. But just not a whole lot for Georgia to try to generate last night. They did have 11 runners in scoring position. They were 2 for 11 with runners in scoring position, but obviously didn't score. And their 2 outs last night, they were 1 for 10 with 2 outs, and just a dominating performance by Nikhazy and Broadway last night. For Georgia, this is a team that the end could be very near for them. They had a gut-wrenching loss Tuesday night to Tech in Atlanta. They used a ton of arms. They used a ton of arms last night. Their starter only gave them, he didn't give up anything. Retired all 5 hitters he faced with 2 strikeouts, and they took him out an inning and 2/3 and brought in Polk. That was Wagner. They brought in Polk, and he gave up the 2 runs in 4 innings. They also threw Pasqua, Caldwell, Pearson, and DeJong to cover their 9 innings last night. So I'm assuming they counted that as their staff game. But Georgia, after a tough loss, Tech on Tuesday, comes home, shut out an opener against Ole Miss. Georgia loses tonight. Georgia probably loses tomorrow and loses the first game in Hoover, and their season is probably done. I just don't think they have enough arms, and I think mentally they're just probably beat up at 3-9 in their last 12 games. And I'm not piling on Georgia. I'm just telling you, if I was playing, that'd be how I'd feel. 3-9, and if they lose again, and go, well, God, we thought, what are we going to do now? I mean, we got to win tonight, and then you get shut out, and you come back tonight and go, well, we got to win tonight. Well, what happens if they get shut out again? I think it's a very critical series for Georgia now. They've got to win a game, and I think Ole Miss may be feeling pretty good. Say, hey, we got a struggling team on the ropes. Let's go out tonight and deliver the knockout punch early, and let's get this done. And that could propel Ole Miss to hosting, and that could send Georgia into a tailspin that not only is a quick exit from Hoover, but eliminates them from the postseason as well.
Yeah, one more win for Ole Miss. That gives them 18. I find it hard to believe the Rebels aren't hosting at that point.
Yeah, I think I think you're right. And 18-12, even if they win tonight and lose Sunday or Saturday, I kind of look at it right now. I think they're going to be 19-11. I think I just based on watching stuff last night, I'm not overly impressed with Mississippi State's offense. But their pitching last night was really good, so I'm not exactly sure. I think they can get 2 more at Alabama, but if they split the next 2 and you got 19 and 11 and 19 and 11, you tie State for second in the division. If you're Ole Miss, you did beat them once. They did win the series. They'd win the tiebreaker, but I think 18 or 19 is just impossible to tell Ole Miss that you're not hosting with a record like that. I think they're in really good shape, and it'll be a great atmosphere, and they know they'll be full and they'll make a lot of money. So I think that would make a lot of sense, to do that, and I think they deserve it because they played really well most all year, and they're closing pretty strong, and 19 wins in this league deserves to host.
Barry, let's talk about the topic of hosting just for a minute, then we'll go back to some things last night. I am looking at the RPI. I'm looking at the set of teams, the 20 that the NCAA has announced, and I'm really wondering, and I know you've always said that you think that because of geography, Florida will probably get a host, and I think you're probably right, but let's just play a what if, okay? I think of the top 20 teams, or of the 20, not the top 20. It's a list of 20 from which the NCAA will pick. You've got Arizona, Arkansas, East Carolina, Mississippi State, Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, Texas Tech, Texas, Tennessee, TCU, and Oregon that I think at this point are pretty safe. So that leaves 5 of the last 11. I think right now Charlotte is probably in a better position than Florida. And a lot of this discussion is going to be about Florida. I think Ole Miss is in a better position than Florida right now. So that would be 13. Stanford, I think, in a better position than Florida, especially factoring in geography. So that would be 14. I think certainly probably Florida ahead of South Carolina at this point, although, you got the head-to-head component, which could get interesting if it comes down to those 2 teams. But you've also got Gonzaga out west, which is ahead of Florida in the RPI by 1 spot. That's a different conference. To me, it's going to be very interesting how it plays out. You've also got Pitt. I really don't know at all what you do with Pitt. It's going to be very interesting to watch how these teams play themselves out and play themselves in. And to me, I think that, boy, if you're Florida and you lose the next 2 in Fayetteville, you might end up being really nervous when those hosts are announced.
Yeah, I think they would be. But I have said all along, I think somebody in Florida is going to host, and I think they're the only team in Florida that can out of the 20. I just find it hard to believe that nobody from Florida is going to be a host, but I guess strange things have happened. We are in strange times. I just think they will geographically. You mentioned Stanford, a California team. Gonzaga and Oregon. They fit that Northwest bill. Oregon has a really nice park. Gonzaga has never hosted. The NCAA likes to. They fall in love with those first-time hosts. Well, it's a new area. We get our brand into an area we've never been in before, and Pittsburgh and Charlotte both fall into that as well. So Gonzaga is a Northwest team. Spokane, Washington, about as far away from everywhere as you could be. And then you got Pittsburgh, who's never hosted, had a good year. My issue with Pittsburgh is they missed at least 2 ACC weekends for COVID, and I think they missed 7 or 8, 9 games total. So they don't have a full body of work, and obviously they didn't play an ACC, a non-conference schedule like most teams in the ACC did or didn't do. Like, it weren't like the Big Ten where they went totally all conference, but they had a limited non-conference schedule in the ACC. I think that could factor in a little bit. Charlotte hosting at the new Collegiate Summer League Park in Gastonia. That's where they put in the host. I think that's an attractive piece for the NCAA. It's a new area. Can send an ACC team there. Put Charlotte there. Some local, regionalized teams from some of the smaller leagues, and build that into going to, playing one of the top 8 teams. Louisiana Tech, I thought had a pretty good chance. And then, they dropped 8 spots in the RPI, from 24 to 42, 24 to 32 yesterday. One of the biggest drops since yesterday. LSU dropped 7 spots. Alabama dropped 9. And also Georgia dropped 7. So 3 of the 4 biggest drops in the RPI yesterday, 3 were SEC teams, Alabama, Georgia, and LSU. So not good for the league as far as trying to get more teams in the tournament when you're dropping that far in the RPI. I think you can drop that far. I don't think you can rise up that far with another win or 2. I don't know if you can make that back up. But a lot of interesting spots out there. We're talking about Florida. If they can, they win 1 at Arkansas, I think they're probably pretty good shape. And if they don't win any, they may be a little bit nervous going into Hoover, and maybe they make a run in Hoover, but I still think the NCAA is going to put a site in Florida, and they're the only one on the list. So obviously that makes them the obvious choice.
Well, you can also work at it from the back end too. Pitt now 16 and 15 in the ACC, in the 40s in the RPI. I think you can probably eliminate Pitt. Louisiana Tech, I would kind of cross them off the list for right now too. So to me, you've got 2 teams that get eliminated from here on out, and that is Florida, Gonzaga, South Carolina, Southern Miss, all in that group. I think that, frankly, if South Carolina doesn't win the last 2, the Gamecocks probably eliminate themselves from that discussion. So then that leaves somebody else out there. I don't know. Again, I think if Ole Miss gets one more win, Ole Miss clinches, in my mind, the 12th thing. Again, Gonzaga, I don't know what to do with them, but I'm with you. I think that a new hosting site would be one. So I think probably there might be a lot of scoreboard glancing between Columbia and Fayetteville in terms of what happens there, because I could see one of those 2 SEC teams getting in by virtue of another one playing itself out. And Southern Miss, another one to discuss. Southern Miss 28 in the RPI, and the Golden Eagles this weekend have got FAU. I'm sorry, their season is over. So Southern Miss, another one too, that I don't know. I think that they're probably a little bit behind the others in terms of the RPI, maybe have to win the Conference USA tournament to play themselves back into that. And another factor in terms of geography, if Ole Miss steps up and does win 18 games by winning one of the next 2, then I think if you're the NCAA, you look at it, you say, well, we're already putting hosts in Oxford and Starkville. And so I think that would help Florida's chances too. If it's a head-to-head thing with Southern Miss, and it's all pretty close at that point.
Yeah, and you look at some of these teams, Conference USA, for some reason, their season ended last week, and they have like a week off between now and the conference tournament. I guess they set that up on purpose, but I think with the weekend off that Tech and Old Dominion decided to get together and play a series, and they're playing 2 games, one last night and one tonight in Ruston. And Tech lost last night 10-8. Louisiana Tech did to Old Dominion. So I don't know, I don't think anybody in their league was playing. So I don't know if you punish, Tech for going out and picking up Old Dominion, who they didn't play during the regular season, from their league. But obviously that hurt because they dropped. And, now Southern Miss sitting around, won't play till the conference tournament. From 2 teams from Conference USA, they're not going to get 2 or 3 hosts. They'll get 1 out of that league probably, but there will be when you get into the SEC tonight. I mean, there's already enough scoreboard watching as it is, trying to figure out who's going to win the divisions and who's going to win the league. I mean, we went into the deal yesterday with 5 teams could win the conference championship and 7 could win the division. We've eliminated, I think Ole Miss now can no longer win the division. They had some weird things had to happen, but they were still there. And now I don't think Florida has I think we've eliminated Florida too from the division. They could finish 19-11, and Tennessee could finish 19-11, and Vanderbilt could finish 19-11. So no, Vanderbilt could finish 18-11.
19-10 or
18, they could be
11,
19, but they'd win it at 19-10. So
yeah.
they could be 18-11, I guess. So I guess Florida's still a chance to win the East, but I think you're going to have a lot of scoreboard watching. I think Florida's probably pulling for as bad as Florida wants Tennessee to lose, so Florida win the division. They probably want to knock South Carolina down a little bit so they can have the upper hand on them in the regional. And as Ole Miss is trying to finish second in the West and play in a host spot, so they're trying to beat Georgia, and then they're probably cheering for Tennessee to beat South Carolina, and Arkansas. They can't catch Arkansas now, so Arkansas will go ahead and beat Florida, and they maybe can move up in the pecking order on them and finish ahead of them in the standings and be better off for hosting a regional, over team. Say, well, if Florida beat you 2 out of 3, yeah, but we won 19 games and they only won 17 games, or they won 18 games, so we finished higher than them in the standings, and that may have something to do with it as well.
Florida, in my mind, I don't think can win the East now because Florida is 2 full games behind Tennessee, and even if there's a tie there, which would only happen if Florida takes the last 2 to Arkansas and Tennessee drops the last 2 in Columbia, Tennessee won head-to-head. So, and since the 3-way tie is not possible because of Vanderbilt with that rainout game, so Florida now cannot win the East as I see it.
Well, they could tie,
but they would lose this. They would lose the tiebreaker, I guess.
Yeah, but that's only for seeding. They would not say, well, both teams would win an Eastern Division plaque. I mean, that's just how the league does it. So technically, I guess they still can, but Tennessee would win the tiebreaker and would be the 1 or 2 seed in the tournament. I think with Arkansas last night, when I failed to mention that, Arkansas now is either going to be the number 1 or the number 2 seed in the tournament. So they won't be any lower than 2 because the division winners, I think, go 1-2, and then they seed the rest of them based on how they are in the standings. So Arkansas at least knows they're going to play at this time on Wednesday or this time on Wednesday as the number 1 or the number 2 team. And I think Tennessee might be able to do that with a win tonight. If they get to 20, I think they might be able to do that and be able to say they've clinched at least a tie for the division title. That Vandy half game really messes things up.
Yeah.
It really messes things up because if Tennessee could win tonight and lose tomorrow and 20-10, and Vanderbilt wins out, they're 20-9 and Vanderbilt. So Tennessee would have to go to the last day. The only way that Tennessee could clinch tonight would be win and Vanderbilt lose. So, that half game is going to really mess things up a little bit for everybody. So it's going to go down to probably the Vandy-Kentucky game tomorrow to find out who wins the East.
Well, it makes it easier, but I wish everybody had played 30. But speaking of Alabama, you were in Tuscaloosa at the ballpark last night watching Mississippi State and Alabama, what was an interesting game. And I think the big takeaway for me, Christian McLeod, their lefty, who's been pretty uneven, was really good last night, strikes out 10, only gives up 2 runs, 1 walk, and 5 hits. And I think State really needed that because that starting pitching for the Bulldogs lately has not been, I think, what we expected. So to get Christian McLeod back on track, apparently, I think is a big step for them.
Yeah, I thought last night he pitched really well. First pitch was 96 on the black, and I thought he kind of set the tone, for them early in the game. And to be totally honest with you, I thought Tyler Ross matched him. This was an outstanding game, even to the end, and it was well pitched on both sides until the 7th inning when Alabama ran into some trouble. But McLeod retired the first 6, gave up a base hit. He retired the first 7, struck out 5 of the first 7, gave up a 1-out base hit in the 3rd, but got out of it. Then gave up a windblown home run to Jackson Tate in the 5th inning. He's down 1-0, and gets a double play to get out of the 6th inning. And Tyler Ross pitched really well for Alabama. Jordan and Allen got back-to-back singles in the 6th, and then Ross pitched out of that, and it's 1-0 going to the 7th. And you feel like a little bit that Alabama's kind of got them on the ropes. And Alabama elected to stay with Tyler Ross. In the 7th inning, he walks the leadoff hitter. Then Clark, their left fielder, hits a fly ball to center field, and the Alabama center fielder got turned around every which way but the right way and misplayed it badly for a double. off the wall and tied the game. Then they misplayed a bunt and had a base hit, and then a two-run double by Allen. And then they finally take Ross out of the game, and it's 4-1, and it's ball game at that point. I think I don't like second guess people and different things like that, but I probably would have gone with Chase Lee in the 7th inning and take my chances with him. Ross had thrown 77 pitches through 6 and had pitched just an outstanding game, matching Christian McLeod. And then once they got the lead, McLeod comes it back in the 7th, finishes it off, gives up a run, and then they turn the game over to Landon Sims, and he faced 7 hitters and gave up a walk and leadoff walk, and then struck out 5 of the next 6 that he faced, and got out of there pretty easy. So wasn't a bad night for him at all. And I thought he pitched well, and he complimented McLeod really well. And State hung in there, and they're still fighting, trying to figure out if Arkansas can lose any games so they can make up some ground. But I think it's going to be a little hard for that right now. But it was a really good performance for McLeod last night. He did pitch really well.
Well, Barry, we tried to tell Auburn fans don't lose hope back when Auburn was 2-13 in the league or whatever, because the schedule got a lot easier. We thought Auburn was better than it showed. Sure enough, the Tigers now 1 win from clinching Hoover, I believe. So, well, I guess A&M could still sweep and finish a game ahead, but if they tie, Auburn's got the tiebreaker. But Auburn can certainly at least eliminate Missouri with the win tonight. And, of course, Auburn just bombed the Tigers last night 15-6.
Yeah, I think Auburn's in pretty good shape. One more win. Just say if they finish 10-20, and A&M splits, they're 10-20, and LSU's 12-9 would be 12-18. Auburn's going to win the tiebreaker with A&M. They're going to win the tiebreaker with Missouri if something crazy happened there. Auburn would even win a 3-way tiebreaker if they all finished 11-19. If Auburn sweeps and A&M sweeps and they all finish 11-19, LSU, Auburn, and A&M, LSU would be 2-1 against Auburn and 0-3 against the Aggies for a 2-4 record. And Auburn would be 2-1 against the Aggies and 1-2 against LSU for a 3-3 record. And A&M would be 3-0 and 1-2. So they'd have 4 wins. They would be 11th, and Auburn would be 12th, and LSU would be 13th in that scenario. And that's how that would shake out. So Auburn in pretty good shape. Very well pitched game for Jack Owen last night. They needed him to show up and shine for a long time, and last night he pitched really well. 6 2/3 innings, 2 unearned runs, 7 strikeouts, and then some big bats in the lineup last night. With Woolley Rankin going 4 for 5 with 3 RBI, Ryan Bliss 4 for 6, 5 RBI, Case and Howell 3 for 6, 5 RBI. I mean, it seemed like every time you turn around, they were hitting home runs. Howell hit 2, Woolley hit 1. Luke Mann hit a couple of homers for Missouri in a losing effort. But big night on offense for Auburn. Big night on the mound for Auburn. I mean, you had 3 guys there in Auburn's lineup that last night, Bliss and Woolley, they were 8 for 11 and drove in 8. And then you had Case and Howell in there, makes them 11 for 17 and drove in 13 runs last night between those guys. That will win you a lot of games, especially when your pitcher is pitching as well as Owen did last night. And then the bullpen came in. Marson got an out. Brooks Fuller gave up a couple of runs. Carson Swilling came in to close, gave up a couple of runs. Missouri got all 6 of their runs at the end of the game after Auburn had led 9-0 going to the bottom of the 7th.
Last game, the only one we haven't talked about, Vanderbilt and Kentucky. That was an interesting one. Kentucky had the upper hand there. It seemed like late. Vanderbilt is just cruising along. Kumar Rocker's dealing. He gives up a 2-out walk, I think, in the 6th. And then John Rhodes just hits an absolute bomb of a home run to left, ties the game. Kentucky has bases loaded In the bottom of the 8th, Luke Murphy gets out of that thing for Vanderbilt with the fly ball to left. And then the Commodores, there's a kid on that team named Troy Leneve who has just toiled in anonymity for his first 2 years on campus for the most part. Didn't even make the travel roster at points this year. That kid is now their starting left fielder. He has torn it up. He's gotten SEC starts the last 2 weekends. He's hit 4 home runs and limited at bats, and he gets a walk-off last night, Barry, to send Vanderbilt to a 4-2 win. Just a big moment for Troy Leneve, and that's not a name anywhere on anybody's conscience. Not even Vanderbilt fans, not in their conscience, not their conscience. But, yeah, I mean, that was one of those really cool moments you see last night where a kid who's worked hard, who nobody knows about, suddenly has jumped up and become a starter and a pretty important player for them. He gets his moment in the sun with Vanderbilt's first walk-off of the season.
Yeah, that was the key, their first walk-off win of the year, and a game they had to obviously need to win because you're trying to stay in the division race. But Vanderbilt left the bases loaded in the 8th, and Kentucky left the bases loaded in the 9th. So both teams got out of some high leverage situations, and then I think it was the dreaded leadoff walk in the 9th inning, and then the home run that won the game for Vanderbilt. It was a quick finish to the 9th. I mean, it was just, I think, a handful of pitches, and the game's over. And big moment for Leneve and a big moment for Vanderbilt, and two more good pitching outings last night. Rocker, 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, and Cole Stupp, held Vanderbilt to 2 runs in 7 innings and struck out 5. So two more good arms on the mound last night, and a thrilling victory for Vandy on the West End to get that series started on the right track.
Are there any parting thoughts before we end the Friday episode? Of course, we'll be back with you Monday when the rest of the series have been wrapped up. But just such a fun time to dissect anything. Just going to turn it to you for anything that we left out that maybe we didn't get to this morning.
Yeah, I think we've covered everything. I mean, it's just the high drama. Here we are, 14 games left, and we don't know much more today than we did back on March the 20th. There's still 3 teams can win the East, and 2 teams can still win the West. And although I think, Arkansas, pretty much locks it all up tonight if they win against Florida at home, and Ole Miss trying to get it, finished to 19 and get a regional host spot. But just a lot of drama, a lot of teams playing for pecking order, a lot of teams still trying to get in the tournament. I mean, there's nobody. With 14 games left, there's nobody in this league that's not playing for something tonight. Missouri still got a shot to get in the tournament. They're not dead yet. They still got a shot. Kentucky, Georgia, LSU, and Alabama all trying to get in the NCAA tournament. Missouri, A&M, Auburn, LSU all trying to go to Hoover. And, South Carolina, Florida, and Ole Miss trying to host. And State, Arkansas, Vandy, Tennessee, and Florida still trying to win divisions. So, I don't know we've ever had that in this league. It's been a long time anyway that, so many teams are still in play. I mean, even the last place team, Missouri, still mathematically alive with 2 games left in the regular season. And I think that just shows how good the league is from top to bottom. And that not anything I've seen in a long, long time, that you got 14 games left and everybody still has hope, and everybody still has some chance to, finish somewhere in the standings and make the tournament or make Hoover. And I think it'd make for an exciting last 2 nights.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm really anxious to see what we'll be discussing on Monday. Of course, we'll be rolling out our player of the year, our all SEC teams. We'll do those sometime over the weekend or Monday. Hope people will go to the site, which is southeastern14.com. Look at that. Follow us on Twitter at 14 Southeastern. Again, our content all free at southeastern14.com, and we'll have plenty of it coming up next week. I'll be in Hoover for most of the week to cover that and bring you everything from the ballpark. Anyway, for Barry Allen, I'm Chris Lee, the host of the 14. Everybody have a safe and happy weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday on the 14 podcast.